after we got back from the tour in March, everyone was asking us, who are these people? So that's why I am talking to everyone involved. And now we have the honor of having Fredrik Åkesson from Opeth here, the composer of our first single, which was a huge track for us, Nidhugg. So welcome.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
It's really cool that you were able to make it. So first off, I just want to check. I mean, I know that Opeth is in a big sort of touring cycle at the moment.
Yeah, we're just going to start rehearsing on this upcoming Saturday for a European tour, Scandinavia, Europe, Northern Europe, and the UK.
Okay.
3-week tour. So yeah, it's a lot of notes to nail.
Okay.
Yesterday, me and Michael, we played at rest in peace, Ragnar Wahlqvist, founder of Heavy Load.
Okay, Swedish legendary heavy metal band, one of the first heavy metal bands in Sweden.
The very first heavy metal band.
Yeah.
First album came out 1978.
Okay.
And also establisher of Viking metal.
Okay.
So you have bands like Manowar, for instance, who is a iconic Viking metal band, even though they're New York's Italians, I would say. I think they were influenced by them.
Yeah. One of the things that I think is so cool with being in the sort of metal world is that we have a bunch of, here in Scandinavia, a bunch of artists that you don't really read so much about in the mainstream media, but they've been around forever and they have a huge following. Opeth is definitely one of them, maybe the biggest one of all. And you've been, what, 25 years?
For me personally, I've been in the band for 18 years. Before Opeth, I was in a band called Arch Enemy, a couple of years. And some other bands, like Crux and Tiamat, Talisman. Mm. Yeah. So it's quite a long time for me, and it's interesting. I've seen the band developed a lot since I joined, even though the band was really big before I joined. We covered a lot of new grounds. Like, we played places the band haven't been before, like Japan and South America, for instance. So it's a very inspiring band to be a part of, and challenging. And we always try to reach new levels, new goals, musically.
I know that you have there's a new drummer since not so long ago, right?
Correct. Valtteri.
Yes, I met him here at the Apocalyptica show in Stockholm.
Oh, cool. He's fantastic. He joined us before this new album, The Last Will and Testament. But before that, which was a very good thing, he did a couple of tours with us. Has a good ear, is very ambitious, and he stays true to the original compositions, because Michael Åkerfeldt is very good at designing drum patterns, and he has very solid idea about every little detail. And it's important, if you're going to be the drummer in Opeth, that you pay respect to that, which I think Valtteri did. Yeah. He's a bit younger than us, so we make jokes about this. We suck a little bit of his blood, his old farts, to get more rejuvenated.
Yeah. No, but it's I was always the youngest for a long time, and now I'm the oldest, and I work with a lot of young people. I think that's great, because it's just fresh.
Yeah, same for me. I think I like to have the same mindset as I had when I was 16, when I was just more or less of a junkie of learning things. I still want to be that guy.
So who were you when you were 16 then?
I was into playing guitar heavily. So I quit school when I was after 9th grade. And my dad told me, you have up until you're 19, then you have to go to high school. When I was 19, I nailed the gig with the band Talisman, who was quite popular at the time. Which, it was more melodic hard rock, but it also had, Jeff Scott Soder, Marcel Jacob, who played with Yngwie Malmsteen in Rising Force. So it was a lot of challenging solos and more virtuoso type of stuff, which I was into. And, to get back to your question, I was a kid who, listened to Randy Rhoads, Eddie Van Halen, Richard Blackmore, Ulian Roth, Frank Marino, Gary Moore, Michael Schenker. List goes on and on. I've probably forgot a few names, but and at that time there was a big community where I grew up in Upplands Väsby, where Candlemass is also from, and also Europe, of course.
Oh yeah, it's the hometown of Europe, suburb of Stockholm.
But also in the metal world, it's also Therion and of course Candlemass.
So okay. So this I didn't know. So there was a lot of metal activity in this northern suburb of Stockholm.
Definitely, and all the kids in my street, tons of them were playing guitar. So it was always a competition about.
That's good,
which is great.
Okay, so you were like a real guitar nerd.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. You know, it was good times. You know, you always had the ambition to be part of a band and just focus on being in a band and doing what a band does. You know.
So you've been doing it full time. You're like me. You've never had a real job.
Correct. I had some shitty jobs in between. I got the gig when I was 19, so I managed to pass. I didn't have to go to high school, but I did go to musical school.
Okay.
So I did have like a musical sort of education.
You have kind of some kind of theoretical foundation.
Yeah, I learned more about the theory, and it was really helpful. But I don't think in those aspects really when I just use my ears basically, and whatever. But it's sometimes it's good to have certain knowledge about scales and modes and stuff like that. I'm very interested in it, and I still like to develop it. That's what I like, to play guitar and be a musician. That you can always get better. Always, it's endless.
Yeah, it's constantly changing, and your perception of what is good and not good is also sort of cool or not cool is changing. Nidhugg I was sent the guitar demo that you had sort of and then I was sent that guitar demo and Nico's basic arrangement of it. And then I sort of took it.
You totally stirred the pot.
Yeah.
Which was great, you know.
I react, like this is what I hear, and then I just went for it.
Yeah, I mean, you're the main producer of the project, so that's what you do, of course. And for me, when it started out, I figured, oh, this is really cool. You know, I want to contribute with something, and I thought about this idea that I had, that it was recorded in a more of a metal context, but for me, it was still the main theme was sort of cinematic. And slightly influenced by John Carpenter. And Nico asked me to just add a couple of more parts. I think I had 3 or 4 different sections. And could you do something like that? And I did that. And he took one part away that I think you brought back, actually.
I think so, yes.
And so there was a lot of different versions of this before the final product.
There was a lot of different versions on my process as well. I see my job as a producer is to look for the soul in the song and where does the song want to go.
Yeah.
Of course I hear something, but after a while it has its own life, and it needs to go somewhere, and you just need to follow it. So that can take some time before you get that happening.
It was so cool. I mean, we had a big session, like a Zoom meeting. That was a good session, going through all the parts, going through certain details here and there. But for me, when I heard it from the get-go to the final result, it was really magic, hearing this with a full orchestra and everything. It was very cool to be a part of this, and I would love to do it again, because it's like something I've never done before.
And that was the reason for me. Was I've been producing rock and metal for 25 years or whatever, and been very fortunate and part of a lot of cool projects, very successful stuff. But I felt like I need to do something different. I need a new challenge. So this became the logical step. And we are all, it's fun to, when I talk to all of the songwriters, we all sort of, our connection to the orchestral world is really through film. We all have some kind of experience, and that sort of opened the door into that sonic universe. But to go back then to the 16-year-old kid, were you listening to anything orchestral, or it was just metal 24/7?
I did. I was into a lot of stuff, actually, because I played violin before I started playing guitar. When I was 7, 8, I played violin for a few years. But that was the Japanese method, the Suzuki method,
I remember.
that's based on ear. So basically, if I remember correctly, you have to learn Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star in 16 different versions, depending on different rhythm patterns, like and so on. Okay. Which was kind of boring, but probably good. But I wasn't really into it. Me and my buddy, we were playing. I remember we were playing the Breaking Law riff with Judas Priest, on the violins, and our teacher got pretty pissed off. So I was into hard rock and metal when I was 7, 8. That's when it kind of started, But I get back to your question. I listened to like Charlie Parker and stuff like that early on, which is jazz, of course. Mm-hmm. But the classical music was also apparent in hard rock, because I was into Yngwie and Ulla Roth and stuff like that. And, Blackmore had more symphonic kind of aspects. But also at the very early age, I was into Rush, more progressive stuff. And also at a quite early age, I was into a band called Tempest that Alan Holdsworth was in, which is a really good, heavy, progressive rock album when he played more with a rock tone. And it's just amazing. That I totally recommend it. It's kind of a gray zone hidden album for some people, I would reckon. But so I was lucky enough, when I was at that age, I liked to listen to the older people that were around, the older guitar. I liked to find inspiration and advices from them. So there was this guy called Roger Eklöf that gave me a mixtape, who sadly passed away now. He was good friends with Lars Johansson, who's the lead guitar player in Canvas. They had a band together. He gave me a tape with like different stuff that I didn't know about, especially this Tempest and Frank Marino and stuff like that. So that was a big help. And I always tried to play with, when I was trying to form a band, playing with people that was better than me. That was always my kind of agenda at that time, which I kind of did. And I kind of leveled up all the time. It's kind of cynic in a way if you look at it now, but it was good for development.
All right, so you were like a kid heavily into listening to these various guitar heroes, but I ask everyone the same question: was there a point when you realized that shit, I'm good at this, and this is actually something that I can do for a living?
Well, we won this contest when we were 14 or 15 in school, so we got to do our first single, and people started talking in school, so I kind of realized maybe there's something here I can do something about. But it was also kind of an urge to always, as I mentioned earlier, to develop, and it's sort of, I think it's needable that it becomes a poison to you, like an addiction, if you want to be really good at something. And I think I was bitten by that poison at an early age, and I knew at an early age what I wanted to do, which is something I'm very grateful to, and I think a lot of people don't have that. And I feel
extremely privileged to be able to do what I do.
Exactly, because you've been doing it for a long time and very successful with all the bands you've produced, you know.
Yeah, no, I've been extremely...
And of course, same for you, I reckon. You have to be sort of obsessed to become...
It's a calling.
Good term.
But you've been then... You were like a band guy.
Yeah, definitely. I always loved the idea about being a group, a part of something, a unit, and touring the world and making albums. And I've been so fortunate to being in... I was a big fan of Opeth, and I've been with the band now 18 years. And we're like brothers, and it feels like we're doing something that means something. Otherwise, we would call it quits.
That's important, that as an artist, you need to constantly sort of go back and tick that box, you know, that it's, you know, has to have a sense of urgency to yourself and hopefully to the rest of the world. If you just do it, you can't do it half-assed.
No, and sometimes when people complain, somebody might complain, you're on a tour bus, and it's not all hunky-dory all the time. It's tough, you know, doing this also. But also, you have to, you know, pinch your arm and zoom out and be grateful what you're actually able to do. You know?
I tried the touring thing for a short period, and I realized it was not for me.
It's rough, man.
The studio is my place. It's really where I want to be.
I like two totally different worlds.
Yeah.
For me, I like them both. I like the variety, but being creative is probably the most fun thing. On the tour, you're focusing on nailing this show.
The performance aspect is a completely different headspace than the creative aspect of it.
You're into tiny details with gear from performance and everything that's involved, but being a part of Bright and Black was really cool, because in Opeth, Michael writes the majority of the stuff. I write my guitar solos, and we've written 3 songs so far together on during 18 years. Okay. But that's fine, because he has always been the creative director. But I like to write stuff as well. So I really appreciated this opportunity to be a part of Bright and Black. Cool. And be creative, you know. And thanks for that.
And we are, you know, as I said, you know, the first single, and we couldn't have chosen a better song as an opening statement for the project, because it really sort of embodies the whole idea of what Bright and Black is about. And we reached, you know, it's still our most watched video. And someone, not me, came up with the idea that we should do an AI video for it, which was also a brilliant idea, and it really gelled together with the music. So it was a perfect start for us to have Nidhugg. But we have to then spend a moment on what is Nidhugg?
I came up with the title after thinking a little bit, and Nidhugg is a dragon that gnaws on the roots of in the North mythology of the Yggdrasil, the world 3, and it also chews on the inhabitants, which are criminals who ends up there. In a way, it's like the hell of the North mythology. In a way, not to compare with other religions. And it felt like because the theme and the goal with the song for me was to make something really dark. And I think it symbolizes that pretty cool. Because I want to do something really cinematic and powerful and dark. And Nidhugg seems like that's a pretty cool idea.
I never heard the word. I might have heard the word Nidhugg, but I didn't know the meaning of it. And would you explain it to me? And I did some reading as well. I like that the concept of that this dark force that sort of sucks the life out of things. In a which is a kind of you can apply that to in so many directions.
I dig slightly deeper into it, and I think that's not just the only dragon in this realm called Niflheim. I think there's about 6 more dragons, but this is the head chief.
Okay, all right.
6 or 7, I'm not sure. Something like that.
All right.
Well, it's interesting with mythology and stuff like that, and it's a good inspiration.
Whatever, you need to find it wherever you find it,
Yeah.
It can come from, it can come from anywhere, but you need to take your time and look for it. And we jump back and forth a bit here between, Bright and Black and you growing up as a musician, because I'm curious to figure, see why these people ended up doing what they're doing. Everyone was playing guitar on your street, but you're the only one that does it for a living. Is that so?
Well, not really, I would say, but yeah, I've been lucky. I think.
But is it only luck?
Not sure. This is up to the listener to decide. But to be humble, I would say, it needs a certain portion of being at the right place at the right time, and but mostly you need to be dedicated and develop your skills, and be, like we mentioned earlier, have this sort of a poison obsession to reach new goals all the time, which I'm still trying to keep. As I said, have that kind of mindset as I had, the hunger. You don't want to get the hunger needs to still exist.
Absolutely.
That's something I try to maintain.
So were you a disciplined? Or were you and are you a disciplined in terms of you practice every day, and in the classical world they need to be super disciplined and every day practice on their instrument?
I try to. My goal is to play at least 5 hours a day, but of course there are days like today when I'm hungover, being at the funeral for Ragnar last night, and we had a few beers after, and it's important to, look after yourself, to keep this discipline of practicing. And on the tour, when we're touring, you have a lot of hours to kill. So I tend to play a lot of guitar, and I always use the modern tools we have now. Looking at what other people doing, and try to develop, get inspiration. But I think it's important you might find a lick or something that somebody shows on YouTube, but you can get inspired by it and make it your own lick and modify it, which is something I try to do, and but definitely you need a lot of discipline.
And do you have like is it at the same routine that you I do these scales for 20 minutes and then this, or how does it work for you?
Well, when it comes to coordination, this hand talking to this hand, I have 2 old pieces that I learned when I was quite young with a friend of mine, guitar body from that era called René, and we learned 2 Paganini pieces. One was classical pieces. One was Moto Perpetuo, and the other one was the 16th Capriccio. And those are totally different, but it's melodies, endless melodies played instead of burning scales up and down. It's so much more difficult to play, and it demands so much more coordination and really high interval jumps, especially the 16th Capriccio. And it's played on violin. It's a totally different ball games playing on electric guitar. So those are the 2 things I still practice like a routine, like a warm-up routine, but it's more fun for me to listen to because the compositions are so fantastic, and it's more difficult than learning scales up.
Yeah.
Which is, I do that also because I like to know the patterns all over the neck. So playing a melodic minor, harmonic minor, etc. I like to know all the 7 modes everywhere, and I'm interested in triads and voicings and stuff like that. I think that's really developing as a musician to know this chord. It can be played there and it will sound totally different. Like a C major 7th chord in the second voicing is, this first one sounds like a campfire chord, but the second inversion sounds way more interesting.
One of the benefits for me with Bright and Black is that I've sort of become much more aware of these color nuances, within rock, or this kind of stuff that I've been doing has been more, I would say, like, your universe of rock is more sophisticated musically than the stuff that I've been doing. I've been doing more basic, basic rock and roll and metal, even though that has its challenges and so forth. No one is better than the other. But I've now that I've, and very much thanks to Eicca, he's taught me so much without him knowing it, about how the orchestra works and how the colorization of sounds work within the orchestra. And I find it super, super interesting.
Very much so. Yeah, it must be fantastic to be producer of this.
Now, it's always good to not have a clue what you're doing, and the first, now I know a bit more after doing an album, but in the beginning, I had, what the hell am I doing? I don't know anything about anything in this universe. But you learn and you go with your instinct, whatever feels right, and then when you feel that you reach your limit, then you need to ask someone who knows better. And I've had Eicca and I've had Kristjan, and they are both extremely...
And that's when you learn and develop, right?
And how Kristjan, how he uses the flavors within the orchestra has been very, very interesting to learn about the subtle nuances that goes on in being a conductor.
I was really impressed when I watched a few clips on YouTube from the shows, because I was out on tour when you played in Stockholm. So I didn't manage to come to the show, which I was really pissed off about. I would love to see it, but it's so cool to see from the recording how it came about in a live context. And different than a regular classical concert, different approach, more of a show, but still.
The conclusion is that Nordic Pulse Orchestra, they're a band, and Kristjan treats it like a band, in the sense that it's every single person. It needs to be that person on the viola and on the oboe or whatever, because it's that person's voice, which is, you're not replaceable in Opeth. It needs to be you, because it's your sound, your style, and in a traditional orchestra, people are kind of replaceable. We're just looking for a texture here, but in Nordic Pulse Orchestra, it's not like that. It has to be these people.
That's super cool. We have with Opeth, we did a show in in Plovdiv, Bulgaria, with their symphony orchestra once, in an old ancient Roman theater. So we have had a conductor who got our set list, and unfortunately I don't remember his name, but we rehearsed with this orchestra the day before, and we had a choir also. So it was a big orchestra, and it was quite interesting to how he interpreted all the songs, and we had to scale it down a little bit. There was a virtuoso kind of grand piano player that just played on every riff. That we had to, dampen that a little bit.
Yeah.
But so that was my first experience with something similar to this. But playing some of the old death metal songs like Demon of the Fall and have this choir singing in the back in this sort of old Roman amphitheater. Unfortunately, we didn't film it. But that was a very cool experience and very grateful for that. So that also, when this came about, when you and Nico asked me about this, I was really like, wow, this is super cool, I really want to do this. And it's something I've never done, and it's really honored and happy to be a part of it.
And to go back then to your band life, you do. I mean, Opeth is a full-time job.
It is.
Yeah. And you do not so much time for side projects or.
I do some stuff. I've been working with the band Ghost a bit. So I recorded guitars for Impera. And I also did.
That's a massive gig.
The EP of cover EP we did called Pantomime. So that's a cool side job I do sometimes. Not live, but just...
Yeah, but more like session work.
Yeah, that's a session work, definitely. And a different... With Opeth, I design my own solos, but this time, when we did Impera, I worked with Claes and Tobias. Claes Åhlund, the producer, and I was the guy in the middle, and one guy had this idea, and the other guy had the other idea, and I just tried to fulfill whatever they wanted, And you have to zoom out and respect the vision of
as a producer, when you get to work with people who have the talent and have that mindset, it's such a joy because it just makes it easy when you're able to navigate through, because there's always loads of ideas. If you're bringing in a session guy for a band project, there's always going to be shitloads of ideas floating around.
And it was also a matter of, you had nailed an idea that worked perfectly for this song, but then Claes might come up and, what if we try this? And you spent 4 hours on something. No, not again. And then, but you have to fulfill it. You have to go the entire laps around to find out, and maybe 70% of the time, it wasn't better, but you still have to do it. That's what a proper producer do. And you have to be patient,
And sometimes you have to, in order to do the right thing, you have to first do the wrong thing.
Yeah.
We go that way, and then you realize it wasn't that way. It was over here. But then we know, because we cover that, and we will be totally happy with being here, and we won't question it afterwards. So it's if something tells you to go down that route, you need to do it to check it out.
I mean, it would save you a lot of time to dismiss a really stupid idea or bad idea. But sometimes you don't know. As you mentioned, you have to.
I saw an interview with someone. Was it Aerosmith? When they have like band meetings and they were gonna, everyone was writing at home and they have band meeting and we're gonna talk, and someone almost said, "Play me your worst idea." And then I think like what's it called? "Love in an Elevator" is a track from them.
Yeah,
I think that was this is one of the really crappy riff I have, and everybody else goes, "Oh, that's really cool,"
That is strange. I also worked sometimes with John Norum, the guitarist from Europe. We wrote some tracks together, and I've been working with Biff Byford from Saxon, for instance, for his solo album. So, getting back to your question, what if I do different stuff? I do, and also Bright and Black, of course. So it's quite a variety of different stuff apart from Opeth, which I think is fun, and I like to be creative. But the other day, I was with John. He's working on a new album. And for me, I'm working also on a guitar album, which takes forever because I'm so picky. And it's kind of not good for me to just be doing it on my own. I I would probably benefit me better if I work with somebody. But if I write something to another person, like for John, I came up with a song within 1.5 hours. Because it's that kind of riff, oh yeah. And then we arranged it together, like where the parts gonna come in and the sequence of the actual song. And just go so quickly. So I wish I was more like that when I'm trying to do my own stuff.
What we're dealing with is mind games. It's, you know, if you're doing something just for yourself, it can get a lot more complicated than if you're doing it for someone else. If you have a deadline, you will deliver something. If you don't have a deadline, you will be stuck forever with whatever you're doing. So it's mind games.
That makes me think about Bright and Black, because I had all these sections, and you like the demo thing I had, this idea of the song, with the recording more like a metal kind of context. But Nico just asked me you need to have 2 more riffs, and they just popped out, more or less immediately, within a week at least. No, so you're right about the deadline.
Yeah.
You need a little dagger in your back.
You need some kind of limitation, you know, or a purpose for something. People are waiting, you know. We need something. It changes your mindset.
A big pile of money.
Yeah, exactly. What's your motivation? But I did a bunch of music this spring, just piano songs, and in my mind I said, okay, I'm gonna write, do a bunch of songs for this singer I had in mind. Because that would fit that voice, you know, and I did the songs. But I never sent them off to the person because, you know, I've been using them for other stuff instead. But it was a good way to fool myself to actually, to do something, you know, and to not just doodling around, but to get seriously creative.
Yeah, I mean, as you mentioned earlier, also with Bright and Black, that was a new thing for you. And sometimes just jumping off the cliff into unknown territory. That's good, probably a very good thing for development.
Give me a film score that really had a massive influence on you.
The Good, the Bad, and Ugly.
Morricone.
Yeah.
I think that had a. Have you seen the documentary about Morricone?
No, but I watched a movie again recently with my girlfriend. It's and it's so cool to see it because everything is so much slower than a movie nowadays. But it's so powerful. But there's so many good soundtracks. I really liked the first Conan movie.
This is a soundtrack that has been discussed with Nico, and I when he mentioned it, I had to go and listen to it, and it's a great soundtrack.
It's fantastic. Yeah. I also like Rosemary's Baby.
Another great movie.
And The Exorcist, and those are really scary soundtracks.
It's music that's really far out there. If you just listen to it stand alone, you know.
I collect vinyl albums, and I always like to run through soundtracks. And here and there I pick up a new...
Yeah, I've understood that, but you and Michael are hardcore vinyl people.
Yeah, well, he's up there, and I'm like there. But it's great to, when we're on tour, we kill time by going to vinyl shops. Also, Joachim, our keyboard player, is into collecting vinyl. So it's a cool thing that we do for bonding, but also it's great to go out with Michael because he has such a knowledge about prices and different labels, and it's super nerdy when you dig into this wormhole deeply. I like the fact to put on a vinyl back home. I think, for me at least, I listen to the album differently. Because you don't have the option to skip the song. You don't have the energy to go there and, you know, lift the needle to listen to a different track. which as far as when we do an album with Opeth, we like to look at the album like a vinyl. So you have, like when you were a kid and buying an Iron Maiden album, the opening track of side B, super important. Yes. So that's kind of a thing I think is probably cool to have in your mindset when you do stuff.
I loved doing the sequencing for records when we did vinyl, because it was much more of a composition, you know, a symphony in 2 movements.
Yeah.
You release an album and then it's at least 18 months of touring.
Yeah, but we used to tour 7-8 weeks, but we don't do that anymore. So we have a limit of 3 weeks touring, then we have breaks, which I think is very good for the band's longevity. And we all have families, and we're not 25 years anymore. And yeah, I think that's, of course, if you play another week, if you're in America, then 3 weeks, the profit will be much better if you're only looking at the money aspect of it. But for the longevity, it's healthy for the band to have this kind of rule.
So you do 3 weeks, and then you have what? How much off do you have before you go on the next leg?
A month, something like that. We don't want to milk it, you know, to the very...
Yeah, milk yourself, rather, you know, or squeeze yourself. I totally get it.
We could do more, but we need to keep it at a healthy level. And I think that's probably good for the people that are interested in coming to our shows as well, that you don't overdo it. That's also something that I found really interesting when I got approached by being a part of Bright and Black, that you had Watain and Meshuggah and Nico from Entombed AD, now Catatonia, all these cool bands, and Eicca, who is a fantastic musician. He's the virtuoso that will be the icing of the cake of the album, if you say that.
He's the singer of the band, so to say.
It's a really cool concept.
But I mean, I went in and I said, okay, I want to have people that I have worked with and or like, you know, to contribute, you know, and all these bands are on my top 10 list, you know, of bands that I really like, you know, and some of them I have the privilege to work with, but it's been really, really cool to have this enormous talent to, you know, share their music with the project. And the case I want to make is that, you know, these two worlds are not so far apart. And I think in many ways I have proven my point with that, you know, and just talking to you and you describing, you know, your warm-ups and you know, all this, you know, it's like these two worlds are closely related.
Yeah, I think classical music relates to heavy metal, like Beethoven's riffs could definitely be metal.
Yeah, he was a real riff maker.
And that's why I also loved the idea about this project, because the connection is there. And this way, Bright and Black it's a unique way of presenting it, which is super cool.
All right. With that, I want to say thank you for taking your time to...
My pleasure, totally.
Come here and talk to us about this.